Hello, and welcome to a royalty episode of the Drywall Podcast. With us today, Kayla Sullivan-Beckett, aka the Taping Queen out of Edmonton, Alberta, joins us to discuss early challenges of being female in the industry, the Drywall Junkies page, and driving people to work.
It was hard because I really didn't like drywall in the beginning. I
Nobody
really did.
does.
I really thought it was a really dirty, dusty job.
It's
And
shitty.
my ex was like an idiot, and he was like toxic and stuff. So he actually lost his license. So I was like forced to drive him to work every day. So I was going
Okay.
to school and I was going to driving him to work. And because there was no point in me like getting a part-time job while I was in school while he was doing drywall. So I would just go to work with him on the weekends.
Kayla and I go all over the place talking about all kinds of topics, including the bead hopper, women in construction, to the burrow expert. Also, I'm excited to announce our newest sponsor for the months of March and April, CanAm Tools. CanAm has been a supporter of the Drywall Podcast and Fresco Harmony for a long time, and I appreciate them for that. CanAm Tools is celebrating 50 years of excellence as the original and leading inventor of the semi-automatic drywall finishing tool. Their line of tools is centered around the compound tube. The compound tube is one of the most versatile tools on the market. For the months of March and April, you have a chance to get your hands on these tools at a discounted price if you go to canamtool.com and enter promo code TDP15. Also, be sure to be on the lookout for my interview with company president Wolfgang Dombrowski coming soon. The Drywall Podcast is also brought to you by Fresco Harmony, making walls better since 2004. Now available online at csrbuildingsupplies.com. Kayla and I talk about CanAm tools and a ton of other stuff on this, the 40th Drywall Podcast. Let's get into it. Kayla Sullivan-Beckett, One Chick Taper and Company, doesn't really need an introduction. She's pretty well known in the industry as a mogul. And you're from Edmonton.
So originally I'm actually from Ontario.
Ontario.
I moved to Edmonton in 2011.
Okay.
So I met my husband, we dated long distance, and then I just couldn't do it anymore. And I was like, you're either moving here or I'm moving there. And he flew here and he packed my car and drove me to Alberta. And that's where I was for like 9 years.
Had a guy. He was like, he came and scooped you up.
That's it. Like there was no messing around with that one.
How long have you been married?
Almost 11 years.
11 years. That is pretty dang good. I'm at 8. We had some rockiness yesterday. There was some waves out in the ocean.
It's all ups and downs all the time.
Her thing is, I'll just talk about it. Like, who cares? We can say whatever the fuck we want, Kayla. You know what? Although, no, CanAm will be sponsoring when this drops. It'll be the month will be sponsored by CanAm. But you know what? What makes the podcast cool is that we say whatever we want. We don't have no overlord looking over our shoulder. We can just let it go for a little bit here and speak freely and honestly. And I think that's what makes the podcast cool, though. That, what was I gonna say? Oh, when we get in a fight, she always goes straight to, like, let's separate for 30 days. And I'm like, whoa, pump the brakes, dude. Like, separation's like for when it's like you're miserable for a couple years, like you can't deal anymore, and then like maybe you separate. But like every fight, and it's like, dude, we just had like 2-3 good weeks, like solid, no issues, went skiing, all kinds of cool stuff. And then it's like we get one little fight and it's like, oh, that's it, we're done.
My husband, if we get into any type of argument, I'm like, go to the trailer for the night. Just get out of my house and I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, well, and a lot of people say, you don't want to go to bed mad, but in my relationship, it kind of works. Like I'll go sleep. We have a 7-year-old, so I'll go. He has a queen size bed, so I'll crawl into his bed and just like, I'm sleeping in Sean's room tonight.
Marriage is all about compromise. Like I always say, like my husband's grandfather, like he was married for like 70 years, and I always say like no marriage will ever be perfect, and it's all about compromise. And the biggest thing of all is communication. Communication is key to any relationship, because everything put aside, it's like if you're not friends and if you can't talk through issues and problems, and especially if you're together. Like I was 23 when I met my husband.
Okay.
So like, and I'm like in my mid 30s now. Like
how old's your husband? Is he older?
He's older than me. Yeah, he's 47.
How much? He's 47.
13 years.
You're like exactly the same as my wife and me. I'm 46 and she's your age.
No way.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Well, it's something.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't deal with people anymore. So I was just like, I knew what I wanted, and I wasn't going to stop unless I found that. So
I think it works pretty good. At a young age. Yeah, we got married. We hooked up. She was 21. She lied and said she was 22, which is kind of comical. But it made a difference. For some reason, it sounded better in my head. But we've been together, I think, 11 years and married for 8, and although it's a little different because I'm a Gen Xer, she's a millennial like you, there's a little different wavelength there. It kind of works because, we can meet from different worlds, but I definitely notice when I talk to a female that's in her 40s, it's a different conversation always.
It really is. We even go back and like talk about like the good old days and when we were kids, and the things that like I never got to experience that like when he was a kid, and then like the stuff that like my nieces, because I don't have any children, so it's like my like nieces and nephews that will never get to experience like what we did when we were kids. And just the whole generation. Like, you talk about things like kick the can and the things that we used to do outdoors, and none of that exists anymore. Like the kids don't even find that entertaining anymore. And that was like our livelihood. Like we weren't inside at all. Like we were outside from after school. My mom would be like, you got to come home after school or I'm going to ground you. You got to do your homework and eat dinner. Right.
And you could go outside and run around without, worry of like getting killed or something crazy. It's a little more dangerous today. It's a different time, but it's still a good time. Really? It's a cool time, So going back to
everything has evolved.
Well, one of the aspects of it being a cool time is the ability for Kayla to showcase her wares and get exposed like on a crazy level, which you have done. So let's start out with that. I mean, so you had a knack for videoing, maybe. Was that a muscle that you nurtured? Did you just find it to be natural that you picked up the camera and were like, I'm going to start videoing some of this shit and see what happens? Like, is that sort of how it started, or were you inspired by somebody?
Nothing. So nobody inspired me to do anything. So I was just Kayla Beckett posting on the Drywall Junkies group. Just myself.
So the Junkies was the first group you jumped on?
Yes, I wasn't on anything. I wasn't on TikTok, Instagram. Like I was on nothing. I was just on Facebook.
Did you? You had a personal. You had a personal page.
That's how it started. Like before I even opened up my company page, like I've owned one chick tapering company since 2011.
Okay.
But because like the industry that I'm leading in like Edmonton and Ontario and like the locations that we were in, they did have a lot more possibilities for entering into the trades.
Okay.
So when I moved from Ontario, for the first 5 years, I was a hand taper in Ottawa. I worked with the ex. And then when we broke up, Chris and I started dating, which is my husband. and he was out west. And then, like I said, I don't like long distance relationships like that. So he's like, well, I want you, so I'm going to come pick you up. I'm going to pack your car. I'm going to bring you back to Edmonton.
That's the kind of cowboy you want to wrangle right there, Kayla.
That's it, and here we are like 11 years later,
That's cool.
So then, so I was working in Edmonton, and I was just like posting random pictures, like, how like the typical girls like post, like picture of me with the drywall in the background, and, like my little cutesy self. And then like the guys were like on the junkies group, they're like, you don't run these tools. You don't do this. Why are you taking pictures? The typical trolls on social media.
So they were like calling you a poser.
Yeah.
Like your husband runs the company. You just happen to stumble on the job, throw some mud on your clothes, and pose with like a banjo.
That's right.
Who does that?
Out of the blue, my very first 2 videos were one of the CanAm. So I posted one video of me running final coat on CanAm corners.
Okay.
And then I ran me running 10-inch box.
Okay.
And that's where it started. Like,
do you know about what year that was?
That would have been 2017, 2018.
Yeah, because I think I've seen you since the beginnings. I've been around. Trying to
like there was no women really to be like hugely inspired by. There was no women, like I know women now that I've been on social media and we've connected on social media, but like I was a very lone ranger, like warrior in this like industry, like battling it out by myself.
Well, I feel like the women hadn't found each other yet, because
but see, that was before social media. That's what I'm like,
right.
We're all over the world, we all feel the same, that we're like we were all alone, we're the only women on the drywall job sites, and then social media just connected to me. Like I can literally probably list off about 100 drywall women that I've met and connected with over social media now.
Okay. And then and you got the Junkies white hoodie on. I was very attracted to the white hoodie. I ended up getting the white shirt, which I really like.
Started on the Junkies group, and it just kind of bloomed from there. So I was still just myself. I was just that one chick taper girl. Yeah. Like I wasn't even the taping queen yet. Like the taping queen hasn't even existed.
Oh, right. Yet. I totally forgot about the taping queen. So there was a transition.
Yeah. So
transition from that one chick.
So I was in the Junkies group just posting my one chick taper self. So at this point now I opened up my company page off of my personal page, because I had some guidance from a couple guys that were in social media. They told me to, post my videos in my company, and instead of me splashing it across like 100 groups, just post the one video across all the groups versus me having to repost the same video in the groups.
Who was that? Who gave you some guidance there?
There was he was a French guy. His name is Joki. He's from Quebec.
Okay.
And he's like the most funniest Quebec guy like I've ever met. Like,
all right.
Like, just hilarious. This is some of the shit that he did. It was just like he made everyone laugh. Like he has a huge following. He has like over 100,000 followers, and he was just funny as like shit. Like,
and he was a drywall guy. He was in Junkies. He was a drywall guy.
Yeah. So he was actually like for the longest time, like he was like as like a girl, a normal. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, you're so good at videotaping. I'm like, how do you do this? And he's like telling me pointers, get a tripod, put your camera in the window for better clarity. And just remember all of this, I was recording all my debut videos off of an iPhone 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's just like, it just kind of came from like posting in the Junkies. And then I don't know how I did it, but I was starting to know a bit more about social media. And like when you post on Facebook, it says like how many shares you have. So then somehow I figured that one out. And in there, it showed like these guys that were in the Junkies group posting in some Portuguese, Brazil, Mexican groups. Like it was crazy. And they called me La Reine de la Pasta.
Okay. Right.
And at first I'm like, the pasta queen. So like I actually had to get a couple of guys to translate it.
Yeah.
Because I was all confused. Like I'm so English and Canadian, like I don't know Portuguese.
It probably didn't have
so
it probably didn't have the little translator like it does now too. You can hit the like C translation button.
Yeah. So then in time it just like that was like it. Like eventually everyone was like, you're the mud queen. And I'm like, I'm the taping queen. And then I just kind of ran with it. Like I don't think I'm superior above everyone else. It's just like kind of like a name. It's like I call myself the Lady Gaga of drywall because I got Kayla Beckett, I got One Chick Taper and Company, and I got the taping queen.
Now, do you keep those titles, or is your company, what's the actual name of your company and brand? I mean,
so the company, like my actual company is what is on Facebook, which is One Chick Taper and Company. That's the registered license name, everything, and that's my business. And then the taping queen is like your internet facade, I guess, if you want to say it. Kind of just brand. I wanted to brand myself something that stood out, you know, it's something that was different. It wasn't just like your regular drywall contractor or drywall this. Here in Canada, we're not called drywall finishers. We're called tapers, you know? So
you know what? You know what? I was corrected when early on. I was like, I said taper, and the union guy was like, that's what happens at the end of your shit. When you take a shit, that's what a taper is. You know,
all those union guys, they have the union, the best comments.
They're hardcore. And he was like, we're drywall finishers. And I was like, from that day on, I was a drywall finisher. I was no longer a taper. But now, of course, in the industry, it's like, you know, we wore whites too, which a lot of people think is weird. And, you know, there's different schools.
This is as white as I get for like clothing.
No, in the union,
I wear black.
In the union, you wear white pants. I just talked with another guy in Minnesota, and they wear whites too. I was like, oh, that's not a Northwestern thing. I was in the union in Portland, Oregon. So West Coast, but yeah, they wear white pants, which is
here
weird.
If you're union, I'm pretty sure maybe you might wear white because a bunch of followers, you just kind of follow what everyone else is doing. But I've never been in the union itself. Like I've always been a self-employed contractor or like a piece worker of some sort. Like I've never worked for a union company. You know, I've been in drywall since I was 18, so I don't even have like much like actual outside of construction. I really don't have anything to do with like the tax world outside of that. Like that's what I love about being self-employed is that you're able to have a lot more write-offs. You're able to, you know, I'm like, oh, I need to write off something this year. Let's go out and buy a trailer, or go out and buy a truck.
Well, I'll say this about the whites, because they were always Dickies. I wore the Dickies, and they get soft after you wear them a lot. And they always had the side loop. I think you keep your knife in your side loop, but you have like a metal holder.
Yeah, I have
where
a
you
whole
keep your
belt,
six.
like an actual. Yeah, so it's like I'm actually wearing it right now.
You got to be careful with that. You'll cut the fabric in your car, man.
Yeah, like I said, but it's by Circle brand. So
all right, let's see it.
Funny. It's a funny little story behind all this. So
I always wanted to wear one of those, and
so
they didn't have those when I was in. I'd use the little tool, the hammer loop on the side of the Dickies.
Yeah. So back in I'd like to say 2013. I was doing a parkade in a basement, like, you know, underground. It was so hot in Edmonton. It's very dry desert heat in Edmonton. Here in Ontario, it's a very humid, like you can't run away from the heat. And even in central arid houses, it's still muggy. So in Alberta, I bought this belt because I split my pants open as I was bending down to do a butt joint when I was wearing jeans. And then after that moment, I stopped wearing jeans because in like my past life, if you were ever a female, and it is that time, try wearing white pants on a job site. Okay. It does not go over very well. And there's no way of hiding it.
Yeah. That's a hot mess waiting to happen.
Exactly. So that's why I don't wear white. As a girl, it's very rare for white.
Yeah, bad. See, and here, well, that's an interesting fact because the union, I would assume, doesn't even take that wouldn't even take that into consideration. And it's
Well,
like,
up until
wait
just
a
a few years
second,
ago, yeah.
wait a second, girls can't wear white. That's a bad idea, you know?
They never think about that aspect of it, right? Like it's the one thing, even like it's sad that we're in 2023 and we're still fighting for those like to be acknowledged, that we're not a man, we are women,
Yeah,
we're very
yeah,
much a women and we want to
yeah.
present ourselves as women, but be professional and have like common courtesy of those
I like that. I
times.
like it when the girls get done up and they have the side by side, like the work photo and like going out photo. I think that's really cool. I think it's cool that women can retain their feminine quality and still hang right next to the men on the job. I think that's cool. You got some vitamin D down in Vegas, though.
I did.
You were 8 hours from me, a mere 8 hours.
Oh, snappy.
Yeah, you could have driven over and helped Jack out on one of the jobs. Put you in the
Not out of
color.
there. I'm terrified to drive in the States, actually.
That's a pretty
crossing the border into Buffalo. I'm like, oh my God, we got to switch my car from kilometers an hour to miles.
yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Okay,
so
sorry.
Canadian, man. But good thing I knew my car, so
Sorry, back to the belt. You're not done. You have more about the belt.
that's okay. So yeah, so after I split my pants on the job site, I started wearing jogging pants. And we all know jogging pants don't have belt loops and everything. So then I went to go back from that, I originated a lot of my tool collections through Alberta Drywall in Edmonton.
Okay.
So of course it's like going to a candy store. Like it's literally a candy land for construction people. Like it's crazy. So in there was this leather belt for like $30. And the belt loop was like the other piece to it. And like it was funny because after all these years of me using some of these tools, I'm now actually sponsored by the very companies that I've been like using their tools for years. So this is a Circle brand belt, which I am a Circle brand ambassador.
Now wait a second. Is that the first one that you bought? You still have it. It's still holding up. That looks like and it's probably like an old. That's your old buddy. That's one of your most.
Yeah, man. Like this, like it is rough. I've cut the end of it, like so it fits me properly.
That's your old friend right there. You'd be sad if that got stolen. That's like your gun holster, man.
Oh, that goes in my van and like comes into my house. Like it stays in my purse almost.
You should probably leather condition it. You should get some mink oil in there.
I should.
Clean that baby out.
Some love.
Cool. I have a bench that I really love. I have a 6-inch that I would be like distraught if I lost it, but I always look at those. A couple other people wear them too. They're kind of rare, but a couple people wear them because I'm a side. A lot of people ride their 6-inch in their back pocket or 5-inch, whatever they use. I was always like the belt loop guy. I put it right in the side belt loop because I had the Dickies. And like, that's where I just got used to keeping my 6-inch,
I've sliced my arm open one too many times. So now I like the belt loop because I can throw it right to the very back if I'm doing like trowel work. So I don't like accidentally like bring my arm down and slice it.
Yeah.
Like you can put it closer to the front if you're always like constantly grabbing it. So it's very
now
convenient.
Do you sand your 6-inch? Do you do it this way or do you do it like that way? Do you do it flat?
If I mess up a 6-inch, I just replace it.
You replace it. No, but what if do you sand them occasionally?
I literally have like a box of tools. Like if I used to like file them down,
right.
But like at the point that I'm in my life now, there's a few, like, don't get me wrong. Like if I nick a trowel, okay, I'm going to suffer for 4 hours and I'm going to grind that baby out,
Yeah.
But my knives, like honestly, the Circle brand knives that I use, they're very inexpensive knife. Like they're like literally like $5, $7 a knife. Like,
that's pretty smart. I get so fucking attached to my tools though. Like I have a 10-inch from like 20 years ago. But yeah, it doesn't work any better. I mean, I just like it, it's like my old buddy,
Yes. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like a trowel, like, but like I'm just trying to be honest here. Like
Yeah.
all of my tools have been evolved in the last 5 years. I
Oh,
have
right.
tools that I've had since the very
Right.
beginning. Like I have my original old Richards trowel that was a 12 by 4 inch. It looks like a tiny baby now, and it's like, but I use bigger trowels. I use a 14-inch trowel all the time, and it's either the level 5, which is 4.5 inches wide, or I use the new Nella one, which is actually 5 inches wide.
Mm-hmm. Those
So it's like
Nellas
I've
are
evolved over the years, and I don't use tools from like 20 years ago anymore. I still have them, but they're in like my archive like collection now.
sure the Kayla Beckett original. Like, and you can purchase the Kayla Beckett original knife for $2,000.
Hey man, why not? Like
Would you sell it for two?
I'll sell my old rusty Marshalltown from 15 years ago.
You could absolutely sell your old tools for fucking 15K, especially if you signed it and sell it to somebody. I mean, well, not 15K, but like there's a price.
Yeah,
There's a price.
2 grand a night.
You think 2 grand?
Why not?
It's a Kayla Beckett original. It might be a collector's item one day.
It's where it all began, like how it all started, like, and because I've always been very diverse, so it's not like I have 15 trowels, but I do have Richards like knives, or broad knives, like I do have Marshalltown, so it's like I was very diverse.
What about advanced? What about advanced? You use those offset knives?
So I only use the offset knives now. Like I think I was introduced to them like a long time ago, but because obviously when you're stuck in like before I really transitioned over into social media, I was very like stuck in my ways. Like I was open to learning, but I was very naive in my way. Like this is the way to do it. Like this is the way I've learned to do it. And then once I like really got on social media, that's when like the tool engineer guys started sending me like field test tools. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to use this, I'm going to do field testing. Like I got to figure out a way to like submit these tools into my process, or at least have a place to benefit me to use this tool.
So when you tried out a tool, you gave it an honest vetting, which makes sense. Those vendors that are giving you tools or sponsoring you, they want honest feedback.
Yeah. And like I said, it's kind of like a love-hate relationship when it comes to tool reviews, because like I'm very honest when it comes to it. I'm not like a lot of people know this. Like I'm not a person that you can just send me a tool and I'm going to be like, I love this tool. It's like, no, I have a feeling you may not like this review on this, but I won't post it, but I'm going to tell you directly because I am an actual drywaller on the job site. And like if I can't get my 16-year-old apprentice or one of my workers to properly utilize this tool, how are we going to sell this into the market and be like, and like people come to me about these tools? So yes, the offset knives are relatively new. I'll say 4 years. Yeah.
Who's that? Is that the contractor?
That's my painter.
Oh, that's the painter. He doesn't matter. Let him go.
Yeah. So we're doing a duplex. So before
painters aren't allowed on the Drywall Podcast. Let's move along.
Right. I'm just like,
move along.
Like, so that one will be ready then tomorrow. I'm like,
it'll be ready when it's
ready. But I'm like, it's 1:30 in the afternoon and you're just showing up now. So yeah, it'll be ready for you tomorrow.
It'll be ready when it's ready.
Yeah. But yeah, so
move along.
But yeah, so we were doing Project Majestic, which we were done the main floor and the basement and everything else, but we just had like the little part of the garage to do. So I had Cynthia covering me there, and then I had Brandon over here. But like I was saying, is that like if I can't utilize certain tools, like even the mini pan hop or the mini mud hopper, like my 16-year-old apprentice was running, and he's like, and now he's no longer making a mess when he's installing corner bead. It's so simple and easy to apply. No brainer.
Dude, and you can even be like, dude, put those 5 sticks up. I'll come along and wipe them in.
Yeah, and he knows how to run it. He knows how, like, it's awesome.
I would crush it with that tool.
I know. So like everyone's like, oh, the downfall, you got to keep feeding it. I'm like, yeah, but I wouldn't want to fill a big Trimtex or like even Marshalltown, one of those big mud hoppers when I got like 10 sticks of bead to put on.
Yeah.
Like I like the little one because yeah, you may have to keep feeding it, but you can throw it in a bucket of water. You can bring it to the next job site.
There
It's
you
so
go.
easy to clean. And like the offset knives, like they come in handy, especially in the big cathedral ceilings that I do. So those big vaults and cathedrals, when they have like the wood beams and you can't get in there with your trowel, and it's a
Yeah.
little too much stress on your hand to get in there with a broad knife. So the offsets are perfect because you can get on that perfect angle. Like I did a commercial job with a feature ceiling, and like I was able to get right in there perfectly. Like there wasn't any stressing. I didn't hurt my arm or anything.
Okay. All right.
So
Interesting.
being
I
more
like,
open-minded to the,
yeah.
the advanced offsets, or like I think sheetrock also makes an offset knife. I think that was one of the first knives that I actually had was the sheetrock offsets.
Well,
And then
let's
I
just
met
draw the conclusion here for all of the drywallers that are stubborn and resistant to change, like Kayla, like myself. You women are in a position where you're forced to try these new tools. And because of that, the byproduct of that is you guys becoming more open-minded, having a broader sense of the industry, and like, oh, okay, I might keep a few offset knives in my arsenal. I don't use them all the time, but they do have a place. That's very
yeah,
cool.
exactly.
It's very cool.
Other people in this industry, they may have like only worked with like one company or something. Like me, I've worked with every which designer of taper that you can possibly think of. I have worked with those guys. I've worked with the great guys. I've worked with the stubborn guys. I've worked with the guys that I wanted to quit my job over.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is that you take small pieces of everyone. So like when I was in Edmonton, I worked with a guy named Curtis. He's an ex-hockey player, and it was so meticulous on how clean he was. That's where I get my cleanliness from. So he'd learned to, slow it down a tad bit. Yes, people want speed, but at the end of the day, people want quality. They don't want to come into a house trashed, floors trashed. People notice when you don't
Yeah.
drop mud all over the floor, and
Yeah.
you do take your time, and it really shows. And like another guy showed me how to use the boxes, Leonard. Then there was Daryl. He was the head taper for one of the companies I was working for. He trained me on all the auto tools. So
Okay.
it was just crazy how like when you are more open-minded to processes, that's when you like really evolve as a taper, drywall
Well, you can
finisher,
turn the
whatever.
dial. You can turn the dial on your system because it's like, oh,
Exactly.
now I know 4 different ways to put up the bead. I've tested them all. This is the fastest for me. And like, I know, I know without a doubt, this is the fastest way to do it. And you can like turn the dial on your systems. It's very cool. Drywall is very
Exactly.
system oriented. And that cleanliness that you're talking about, I think, is a big deal. Like maybe not everybody will agree with me. There's dirty tapers out there. I feel like the best tapers and finishers are also clean. They have the cleanest mixing area. You could almost go so far as to say I could tell a good finisher by how they keep their mixing area. You could almost go that far. Like that's just me. It's just my opinion. But
No, I value that because
yeah.
it took me a long time to value that within my own work. Like take the extra 20 minutes, scrape the extra floors, like clean up all my boxes of mud, pile them nicely. And it took me a few years, but like
Yeah.
contractors were actually like, we would rather you over the guy that can do a house in 5 days, but he's going to destroy the house, destroy the floors, blah, blah, blah. He's like, I'd rather give you the house. You may take an extra day or two on the house. He's like, but I value your quality. The builders love you. Your job
Yep.
sites are very clean. And like, once you start getting that feedback, you start realizing that, the stuff that you're doing is actually worth it and actually making you go farther versus you just going in there, smashing the job out, leaving it looking like shit by the end of the floors. Some
Yeah.
guys I know like power sand their floors, like.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It's pride. You're taking pride in what you do. It's another level outside of just making money. You actually appreciate and you are taking pride in what you do. I think that's the only point that you can get to the level of some of these finishers, like, you like Phil and Brad, like these dudes, or you see their work and it's just impeccable. And it's like, like you don't get to that level if you don't do those little things. Like if you don't keep your mixing area, if you don't keep your knives clean, like there's a lot of little details, I think it's super key.
But I always say that comes with experience and time too, right? Like a lot of the guys were thinking the way I used to think when I first was in my first 5 years. Like I've been in drywall for like 16 years now. Like I've been in the trades for over 20 years because like I started in the trades in high school. Like my dad's a carpenter. I was his sidekick, so it was like I was a carpenter throughout high school. I went to college for carpentry. Then it was like I did drywall part-time and I ended up like dropping out of college, like,
yeah.
And it's like I make 6-figure income from being a college dropout, and having my debts paid off in 2 years and like just growing myself. And
why'd you choose drywall if you were coming from like construction background? You kind of could have chose anything. What'd you like about drywall?
Well, it was hard because I really didn't like drywall in the beginning. I
Nobody
really
does.
I really thought it was really dirty, dusty job.
It's
and
shitty.
My ex was like an idiot, and he was like toxic and stuff. So he actually lost his license. So I was like forced to drive him to work every day. So I was going to school and I was going to driving him to work. And because there was no point in me like getting a part-time job while I was in school while he was doing drywall. So I would just go to work with him on the weekends. So then eventually after like, it took me a while, like it took me a good like 8-9 months to even start like having an interest in even wanting to be in drywall. Like, like making that switch from carpentry, from interior carpentry. So I did like tile, I did flooring, we did trim. And like I was going to college so that I was able to go out in the bush and cut trees down to the very furniture that you see in your house. So that's how wide range this program was.
Oh, cool.
But it really made me realize the limitations on what you can do with even the credentials if you go to school for it. Like what my max without me owning and running my own show, what, maybe $25-$30 an hour?
Yeah, but that's okay. Some people.
Well, I wanted more, because I'm not saying it was a bad thing, but it was like when I really wanted to excel in my job and really kind of make, I guess if you want to say it, like the big bucks, I was like, I need to find something that allows me to grow.
Yeah.
And
there's different levels, man. I just interviewed the guy, Jake Creeley with the Spy Sponge. They got 120 employees. That guy's huge and they're doing big jobs and he's building houses and shit in Tennessee. He developed the Spy Sponge.
Like you got to build to that too. Like some people get paid like $18 an hour when they enter into the workforce at 18, So it was like I just really wanted something that was going to offer me growth within the industry. And what'd
you start liking about it though?
It was just like the craft of it. So I built furniture. So when you build a piece of furniture, you see the end result.
Okay.
Right. So when you see that end result, it gives you that type of feeling, gratification, satisfaction.
Okay. All right.
I get that same feeling when I finish sanding a house and I see it painted. I'm like,
wow. Oh man. You should
only thing that's covering my work is a coat of paint.
You should feel what it feels like when you finish a wall in Fresco Harmony. If you like that feeling.
Yes. Well, and that's what I'm saying. So it gave me that same feeling, like that excitement feeling. And it just, even when you're working with wood, you're having to sand it down with different grits and you're going to have to stain that. And like the stain ain't going to cover up any deficincies. It's actually going to expose more of the deficiencies.
Yeah. I've always admired woodworking from afar. I've never got into it too much, but I've always like, that's cool. And Bernie Mitchell up in Ontario, he's showed me some of the shit that he's done with wood. Have you seen any of his wood stuff?
Oh yeah.
Crazy good.
No, they're just so talented, man. That's all it is. It's just pure talent.
Oh
and passion for the craft. And that's why I say it's all about passion. I think that's why when I started to get more evolved, like into like social media and even just like my job, like even before social media, like I was really trying to make those connections. Like my passion for the job, hiring women in the industry, showing us women that we can do it appropriately. We can run all these tools, we can do almost anything a man can, but we may look a little better. Sometimes we smell a little better,
Definitely. I'd way rather work next to a girl. I've worked next to some smelly dudes, man, where it's just like, fuck, man, I can't handle this. Or they smoke, which, again, nothing against the smokers, but like, I go back 20 years, they're like smoking in the house right next to you. And I mean, that's kind of frowned upon now, but like, back then it was so annoying. I was like, but I chewed tobacco, which was also equally annoying. So
yeah. But yeah, I know it was just like crazy.
Good stuff. So you were attracted to the medium. You were attracted to that feeling you get of accomplishment. And I always like the challenge of it, man. I love that mud is so challenging. Like it's such a saucy minx, like it really takes practice. You can't just pick up a fucking knife and run and streak screws. Like you can't just do that. Just like doing that simple action with the blade, you see a million videos of people doing it. It's like
trying to get a hawk and trowel, keeping the mud on your hawk without it spilling. Like that shit takes talent. Like I don't care what anyone says.
Yeah.
Someone walking around with a pan in their hand, there is no effort in keeping that mud inside that pan. You load up a hawk. You tell me if that you can't. Like that.
They're different. I do both. I run both for different things, but I remember specifically when I went, I had been working with a pan and knife for a long time. And then I moved up to Crested Butte. We'd finish out the house and then we'd do this hand trowel finish with a pool trowel. And all the guys would go they put their knives and pans back and they grab their hawk and trowel. And I was like, what is that? And I started running the hawk and trowel, and it was hard. I remember I was messy, and to get the feel of that shit, man. And I had mud all over, and but once you learn the hawk and trowel, man, I love spinning that trowel around and messing with my hawk, and it's just such a cool feeling. And then, I'll do patches where I like run a little bit with the trowel and I'm like, oh yeah, I see how this would be way quicker than pan and knife, in the field. I would still finish though. If I went back to finish a house, I'd probably use pan and knife. But
I don't think honestly I could ever like go back to ever using. And to be honest, I only own a pan really for like quick set, like mixing quick set.
Yeah.
Because like I used to try to mix it on my hawk.
Yeah.
And it used to make a big mess.
Well,
so then that's when I bought the pan, and I was like, we're just gonna mix up some quick set.
The pan and knife guys too. That's their big thing. Well, try to mix quick set on a hawk. Good luck with that. And it's like, okay, that's your
why you gotta just be diverse. Just own all the tools.
Get one of those rubber 8 balls. They like.
I've been looking at those. I've seen them all over social media. I've thought about them, but I'm like, I don't mix enough quick set to really use that type of stuff.
Doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like it mixes a whole lot, but I guess it would work. I don't know.
I think I seen it at the Intex 2019 when we were in Maryland, DC. I think they were at that show.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I missed that one. I was there last year in Dallas, and then I'll be there this year. Are you coming down?
Oh, I don't know.
Too late.
I try not to.
I'll cut it out.
I like the element of surprise, like when a lot of people, they don't know I'm going, because okay, I get people think like I'm this like big influencer, but like to me, I'm just like more still humble and blessed that like who knew what social media would really do. And like even the Builder show, like I took my friend Emily, like I knew her for 2 hours. I met her at Claire's, and next thing you know, we're jumping on a plane and going to Vegas. It's just I for all the like blessed and humbled opportunities that I get, I've really been trying to bring more people into it, because like a lot of these people, it's bad saying it that way, but it is true. Like a lot of people are coming into the game so late into social media. Like there's already like huge, impeccable, like influencers, men and women. And like when I first joined, like there was no like there was no influencers or anything for us women. That's why it was kind of cool. Like when I first joined like the Drywall Junkies group, Drywallers worldwide.
Well, it
Like, and then it was like,
changes. It
yeah,
changes,
like
like it
it just
ebbs and
evolved.
flows.
Like,
Yeah, and
yeah,
I mean, I had no idea, like, you know, and the Drywall podcast is still growing, but this has been a tremendous like connector, man.
yeah,
Crazy,
it's been,
crazy
like I
good.
said, it's just everything has been wild. Like I'm still like mind blown that like in 2018 when I posted my very first video that like I would be sitting here today sponsored by a few different companies. You know,
Who do
they,
you,
you know,
well, who do you got? Let's give a shout out. Who are you
uh
sponsored by right now? Well, you got
well
the
my
Junkies.
well, yeah, I just rep them. They don't pay me
Fuck
to do what I
yeah,
do,
of
but
course.
it's just honestly being the first female admin mod on the group made me feel pretty honored, you know,
There you
because
go.
like it's a very like savage group. Like when I first joined on the Junkies group, like it was savage. Like I mean, like some
Yeah,
days like it
yeah,
hit my heart. I was like,
yeah.
why would they be that
Oh,
mean? And
they're
then
hardcore.
afterwards, I'm like, okay, bud, you're getting a little out of hand. We're gonna put you on 24-hour mute, and you can learn now to, you know, be quiet or be nicer. And then,
I quit the Junkies, and I mean, I have an interview with Kyle. I don't know if you listened to it.
yeah, yeah.
Have you heard that interview with Kyle? He's a great guy, very, you know, he's very knowledgeable about drive. He's more of a boardman. I didn't know, you
He's
know.
board and steel framing.
Yeah, yeah. So, cool
He's
dude.
out of Calgary.
Okay, so we've got. I was gonna say that I got off of the Junkies because I would go on and post, you know, and I've got thin skin. I did back then, and like people were just too hardcore. I was like, fuck this group.
Like honestly, they're savages. Even on me,
Yeah,
sometimes some
yeah.
posts, like, because I'll post
Oh
like hand
yeah,
coding, and they're like, "Why are you using that tool? Grab a bazooka!" And I'm like,
yeah,
"Is this a bazooka video? Like, just wait, okay? I got a bazooka video for you."
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, no. So like I said, so yeah, I guess if you want to say like endorsed, sponsored, whatever, through the Junkies group. And
Okay,
then before like everything took off on social media, I've been with two main companies. So
okay.
Wallboard Trim and Tools, which is the Circle brand, but
What is
Wallboard
it?
Trim and
Wallboard or is it
Tools.
Circle Brand?
So Circle brand is Cheryl's personal line of tools through
Okay,
Wallboard Trim and Tool.
okay.
So
She developed Circle Brand.
yeah, so she has her own line of tools. Like they sell hand tools, they sell knives. One of my like the big yellow baker that you see on a lot of my posts, that is a Circle brand. My stilts are Circle brand.
I got to get
And
Cheryl
so
on here and be like, dude, how the hell did you start coming up with drywall tools? You know, that's an interesting.
yeah, so it was just like I got linked up with Marky Wallboard and then it was just
Yeah,
like took off from there. So I have some pretty big sponsors through them, you
yeah.
know, like I get endorsed
Okay,
to a lot of my tools and promotion stuff.
okay.
And then CanAm Tools, of course. I've been with them since day one, you know, and he just found me on social media because I was posting. And again, going back to Alberta Drywall in Edmonton. So
Yeah.
Blair and Bart are the owners. There's a few different owners there, but the two guys that I always dealt with was Blair and Bart.
Okay.
Blair is more the business savvy guy that runs the show. And then Bart is like the tool master guy. Like he is your
Okay.
tool guru guy. He has every single part, every single tool. If I'd walk in there and I'd be like, I've seen this tool on Facebook, Bart.
Okay.
Where is it in your store? And he'd go and find it somewhere.
And this is
Like,
Bart's taping tool.
that's right.
Okay.
So
All right.
Bart's taping tool is like the Bart's. That's why I say because he's like the tool guy, right?
Sure. Okay.
So and yeah, so then
And then
it's
you
like
were the
CanAm
first
and
you were
Bart.
the first person to have a tech dry tool in Canada.
I was, yes. Yeah.
Uh,
I've been a first in a few. Like
couple
so I was on the field testing team for the level 5 trowel before Scott Murray launched his tool in September of 2018. In April, I was field testing his very first trowel before it got to the market.
Now wait a
That's why I'm
second
like, it's
there.
so
Wait
hard.
a second there. Scott sent me several trials to field test as well. Those might have been on
April
the down low.
2018. But you're
Mhm.
US, so I'm Canadian, right?
Oh, right. So first Canadian. Yeah, he gave me the thin steel. Did you try those? Like the point
I
three
could
gauge?
I could even be wrong too. Like yeah,
Yeah.
like I could maybe he could have sent it maybe to another Canadian, but I never knew any Canadians that had the tool. And then, like I
I
said,
took his trowel. I took his trowel and I grinded it into a pool trowel. Like I was like, you should make these. But then what we ended up using was the DeWalt 14 by 4 inch stainless short shank. Like Jack uses that trowel. He loves it, man.
yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
those are like my three main like kind of sponsors, endorsers.
Okay.
Like I just went to the International Builder Show. I'm getting
Right.
a little bit more connected with a little bit more behind the scenes as the years are going on, and showing my value, showing my worth, showing the
Yeah.
way I present myself on social media. People like my clean, respective side of things and my honest opinions, and
Sure.
my loyalty to the tools and materials I use. And
Okay.
so I'm kind of linking up with Certainteed, which is like one of is Saint Global. They're linked with, I guess if they're linked with everything. Like they make drywall, mud,
Okay.
board, siding, roofing, Tyvek. Like you name it, they make it.
How are you getting linked up with Certainteed? What's the story there?
I just another again just posting randomly on social media and just always tagging them in it, and then eventually
Okay.
I've made a small connection. Like it's like I'm not like fully endorsed or anything by them, but I'm
Okay.
developing a really good relationship with them. And I just
Smart.
actually met the CEO of Certainteed in the US, Mark.
Yeah. Mark.
So it
Okay.
was really nice to be able to connect, being the drywall finisher, and giving him my feedback on things that have been occurring over the last few years with material. And
Great.
I'm not one of those people that will openly bash companies. If I have an issue or a problem, like I'll deal with them or speak directly versus saying things publicly, which a lot of
Smart.
people actually have a very big respect for that, because I'm not here to say like someone's product sucks or this is no good. It's what, I think there's a way to fix this. I'm using this tool or I use this material, and they
Yeah.
really value that, because you're not just like, oh, it's great, or it's that's crap, that's shit, I don't like that anymore. And you're like,
Yeah.
well, why don't you like that anymore? What's
Yeah.
changed in what's been happening? And like there's like the USG mud compared to my Certainteed mud that I use. Like
Right.
the big differences between USG and Certainteed, in a personal opinion, it's the fish eyes.
I call them pock marks.
That okay, yeah. So and
Like on your face.
and with Certainteed,
A
I actually
little-
found I get less of that. So it was like those are like the big differences. I love Certainteed.
Yeah, but
Coat,
can't you just dump in the soap? Don't you just dump in a little dish soap?
I sand all my own work. I don't want burning eyes. I have been there before.
Some people swear by that dish soap, man. I've never
No
used
soap,
it.
man. Water only for me.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Very, very cool.
Wallboard and CanAm are my two like kind of sponsors that I kind of have my back like through thick and thin. Then I also work a lot with Borough Expert. And
Yes. Where are they at? Are they Australian?
Germany.
Okay. Well,
And,
I will not. I won't make that mistake.
So,
Germany.
Yeah, they're the German steel, like it's been hard because like the Tape Tech were designed around the Borough Expert. So the Tape Tech is the Canadian version of Borough Expert. Like
Okay.
But Borough Expert is like the OG before Columbia, before Tape Tech, before all of these companies came out with skimming blades.
Okay.
There was Borough Expert.
I thought Level 5 was the first. No?
So that's
the big skimming
long
blades?
story short, that Scott Murray made his, other things were happening in Germany. So
Sure.
yeah. So Borough Expert was created like 15 years ago or over 10 years ago. And I worked with Ice Rock, and he knew all of these companies. There wasn't always the greatest relationships with some companies that I have worked with. So
yeah. You need to tell Ice Rock to come on here. He's like playing prima donna. He's like You got to tell him.
He's
Hey,
disappeared off social media.
Nick wants you on the. No, he has. I just posted on something today. Like he was talking. He's there. You got to
no,
tell
he's
him.
there, but he's like disappearing. He's trying to post less.
Tell him he needs to come on the Drywall podcast. People want to know. Inquiring minds want to know what's going on in that crazy head of Ice Rocks. What invention does he have going next? And he's got a cool story too.
He has a lot.
Yeah, he's got a lot.
Yeah, Ice Rock and I were really good friends. It's been like 4 years. I started working with him when I was working with Level 5. And then that's kind of how I started working with Borough Expert, because obviously, like I always say, like no tool relationship in business always lasts forever, you know. So it was a transition point in my life in the early year on social media. So I made the transition from like Level 5 stuff to Borough Expert stuff, because you just, you know, different tools, different processes. You think you love a tool, and then you realize that, you know, another tool is actually in fact better than another tool.
Yeah.
So I started using Borough Expert, and I've been with them. I met
How do you spell that? How do you spell that?
EROXPERT.
Borough Expert, and that's German.
Yeah.
And they're the OGs. They're the OGs.
Frank Bozowski is I guess if you want to say the owner of, or like whatever, the leading guy. And I've met him personally at Intex in 2019.
Okay.
So I met him, and I met the other guys that run the North America office.
Okay. I'm so excited about the next Intex, not just having a booth, but the big thing is that I know a lot of people now. So it's just, you know, and luckily I started a little later. Like, just the Drywall podcast has exposed me to this community more, which has been super cool. I've gotten to learn a ton and meet like Wolfgang and Aaron and Columbia and those guys. I already knew Scott, but like everybody's really cool, and you and Shorty and, you know, all the girls, you know, are super awesome. And it'll be neat to go down with like, and be able to like say hi and and meet you face to face, and like, you know, show my wares and talk to people. You know, I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be cool. You know, all this stuff is really cool stuff. Like I didn't know Tape Tech had a predecessor. I mean, I thought Tape Tech was the Ames, right? Didn't Tape Tech come from Ames?
It's crazy. I'm telling you, like if I didn't know certain people, I would think the same way everyone does. When you don't know, you don't actually know, and you're very naive to everything behind the scenes. Like obviously, like I said, like there's so much more behind certain stories, and I'm just like, no, I've realized that there's a place for all of us in this world. There's a place for every tool that ever is created in drywall. There's a place for everything here. You know, and different between whether you're you know, a reno guy, or you know, like the plaster, like the skimming blades. The big thing, a story behind those and why they weren't really here, is because the fact is that skimming blades are a plaster tool. Like an actual plaster tool. They're not a drywall tool. They are an actual plaster tool that originated out of like Brazil and Germany. When they're like putting concrete on walls and they don't want to use a trowel, that's what they would use. They'd use the skimming blades.
Okay. Interesting. And then
just kind of introduced it into the market. And then Tape Tech was here. And then there was some issues, like, you know, with warping, because the body was made of plastic and whatever. And then, you know, Columbia came out and Level 5 with the aluminum, and then now with the bullet steel. And it's just like, it's totally evolved, like changeable blades. It's like every company we know, like it's crazy.
Yeah,
how,
it's
like,
cool.
Something evolves so much in such a short period of time.
Absolutely. Kayla Sullivan-Beckett. One chick taper, the tapering queen, and then in Portuguese it's called
La Rainha de la Pasta.
Oh, I like that. What if you had a pearl of wisdom, what would it be if you could tell all the drywallers, put it on a billboard, maybe on a banner at the next Intex show when you walk in, here's a banner by Kayla. What would it say? What would you tell your community?
Just never stop and never give up. because like there's just so much more to it, but it's like it's a motto I live by, you know, you get what you give, you know, like never give up, even when the whole world, like when the odds of me where everything stacked against me, I'm a female in the industry, I was trying to break out on my own. I got my stuff. I don't even know how many times my shit got robbed.
Yeah,
Truck got broken into, tools got stolen. Totally ripped down and degraded by men and women. Like it's not just men, like women too. Like women are
sure.
catty as hell. We're just gonna go
I'm married to
on a light note.
I'm married to
So
one.
it's
Like
so it's
yeah,
like it just like when everything is stacked against you, that's when you can shine the brightest.
like it. I like it.
Like just never give up and like never, like I said, it's just there's so many that goes into it, but it's like just never give up. Just keep going forward. Like even when everything is like stacked against you, you have 100 bad days in a row. That one day, good day is going to make up for all of those bad days.
I like it. I like it. And we'll get to know each other more. I'm excited to see your journey in drywall, continue and flourish. You're doing great, it seems like you have a lot going for you right now, so that's really good. I like seeing that. And yeah, maybe we will do another show down the road and touch base, but thank you so much for being on the Drywall Podcast today. This is cool, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I said, it's not my first podcast. I've done 4 podcasts now,
Oh,
so
that's
but
right.
it was nice to be refreshed.
Yeah, Pia
Drywall.
Drywall. So he's Brazilian. We started talking.
That's awesome. I was able to
Yeah.
connect you guys.
Yeah, he's a cool dude. He's a cool dude. So
Really?
yeah, I would either have him, I'd like to have him on my show, and I'd go on his show or whatever. But he seems like just such a cool dude. And I'm a soccer player, so Brazil
Well, it was
soccer.
weird because when him and I first connected for the podcast that we did, it was like he's in Ottawa. So like he's only an hour from me in Ottawa,
Right.
but he's based out of Brazil. So it was like super cool how everything has just evolved. Like I said, it's all
And
the
now
communication, social
wait,
media.
CanAm is doing some sort of event in Brazil. What's that all about? Can we say?
So well, we can talk a little bit about it. So every year in Brazil, there's a show called Enix, or I might be pronouncing it wrong, but it's
Okay.
ENIC. It's basically like the builder show of Brazil.
Or Enoch.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, so another influencer who goes there, she does demos and which has always been there. And then I was given the opportunity to go there last year, but unfortunately
Okay.
Canadian mandates held me
Yeah.
hostage in Canada.
Yeah.
These are the facts here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I wasn't able to travel. So she ended up going, which was great that she got to get out, and actually go and do this again. But yeah, so Pia actually works with CanAm.
Okay.
And now we're all trying to basically like connect so that we can get to one of these shows and
Yeah.
be able to go there together with Wolfgang and Faye and Zach
Yeah.
and him and
Yeah. I was telling him
it's still a 50-50, like everything
Yeah.
is like things get very expensive when you travel and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
But I just like to think of myself, I'm very I make Can-Am tools look a little too easy for what I'm told. Like I make it look very
Okay.
easy running the tools.
That's
So
good.
that's a huge part of like the great relationship that I have with Can-Am and these other influencers and stores and distributors that sell his tools. Is like when you make the tools look easy to run, that's where everything kind of is great. So it's been really cool. Like I said, it's been a really cool experience, and like social media, connecting with certain people. And yeah, Pia Drywall, like it was crazy, that conversation. I was like the first English one, so I was not able to talk the way we are talking right now.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had to like short sentences.
Yeah.
So we had a translator in
Oh,
the middle
cool.
of everything.
Yeah, I
So
want to
we had a
interview
voice.
Drywall. I want to interview Drywall Angie and get like my neighbor who speaks Spanish and like have him just translate, like sit next to me and just translate.
Yeah, because it's cool when you're able to communicate with like the other, like the Portuguese and Spanish and like just
Yeah.
other languages of people who love watching like my videos, but they don't understand a word I'm saying.
Right. Right.
So it was
Well,
cool, yeah, going on there with the translator, and yeah, no, it was really neat experience.
um, yeah, and Brazil, how cool would that be just to go to Brazil and check it out? It'd be sweet.
Yeah, no, and that's just it. Like I was 32 when I first left Canada. I never traveled outside
Oh,
of Canada
wow.
ever.
Okay.
So the Intex in Maryland, DC, was in National Harbor in 2019, was like the first time I ever left Canada.
It's addicting, right?
And then I went to Chicago, and like
Yeah.
that's what we were talking about this the other day. So I went to Chicago. I was invited by Trimtex to go to the factory.
Right.
It was the first ever Women in Drywall conference at the factory.
Right.
They've had a few since then, but I was the first one. And it was
Yeah.
like right in the beginning of the lockdown, March of 2020.
Right.
So, and like I was saying, like when we were talking about Fresco Harmony, and like some people they've seen your product, some people they've only heard about it, but like me, I was like Spider Woman on the wall. I was like touching it, and I was like,
Yeah.
ooh, look at this.
Draws you in a little bit.
Yeah, well, it's just like a different product, right?
Yeah.
So it's great being able to like actually like go there and see the different designs. And Bernie was he had some of his work there from the
Yeah.
drywall art.
Yeah.
So it was just like really neat to actually like not only be able like to see what you guys do like on social media, but actually get to see your work like firsthand in person, up close. I can actually touch it. Like it's a very cool experience. So that
And
now
are you going to come down to CSR and hang out and make a sample with us?
I'm not sure yet. We'll
2
figure
weeks,
that one.
dude.
I know.
You know what? Put it all away. Put it all away.
From the International Builder Show, I got like 3 jobs on the go right now,
Right.
and it's like it's time crunch time. Going to Toronto, like
Yeah,
Toronto's
but this
5
is gonna
hours
make
from me.
this is gonna make you money, dude. See, I can sell to the best of them.
We'll see. We'll
no,
see where my schedule lays.
I would like
can't
to
say
see you
for sure that I'll be going,
but if not there, maybe Build 23. Maybe. We don't know for sure.
I know Intex isn't even called Intex anymore, right? It's called Build 23.
It's
The
called Build 23.
AWIC or AWIC.
Whatever they call it. I'm going to try to get some more distribution, and this will be big for Fresco Harmony. It'll be their first national show, so I'm very excited.
Well, and that's just it. Like the International Builder Show was very different. Like it was different influencers there. Like there was different people there.
I went before. I went in like 19, and it was 20 right before COVID. I went, and it was a little weird. I didn't know anybody, and I wandered around. I was like, meh. I was a part of the Home Builders Association here in Albuquerque, and it was just kind of like not, I'm the Build 23 show is more my cup of tea, the Intex.
Well, yeah, those are more of the influencers that we all know. Everyone that we do know on social media, like it definitely is more of like the show, like for what we are geared to. Like as a drywaller, like if I was a reno person, like the builder show would be great because you see tile, bathtubs,
way better
kitchen.
Yeah.
But like I'm legit like a full-time drywaller.
Right. For drywall people, and if you're listening, the build show is great. You can like sponge lots of cool ideas, but if you want to go to an industry show, Intex Build 23 is like what you want to go to. See the new knives, and American Gypsum is there, and like L&W and all these GMS and Certainteed I'm sure Grabber, all these different people and tools that we use on a daily basis. Columbia, those dudes will be there, and Wolfgang, and everybody be hanging out in Trimtex, So that's the show you want to go to.
Yeah, well, and that's why I was like, it was cool to go to the International Builder Show, don't get me wrong. But yeah, it was very much like if I was more into renovations and things like that, it would have been a lot different for like the viewing. But like it was still cool, like before I let you go. So I picked up these things. Okay, so this was because the International Builder Show, we got to remember when that show was happening last week, there was 4 different shows going on. There was the International Builder Show, the National Hardware Show, the Kitchen and Bath Show, and there was something else going on.
Okay.
So like when you go into the building, the upstairs was the builder show and downstairs was the hardware show.
Okay.
So these are like things that you put your extension cords in. So like me, I'm like thinking, I'm like, there's not much here for me. Like I spot these. So I run off generators all the time, especially with being in new, like I work in new projects that like aren't tied into city lines. So like I run off a lot of generators. So these, you could put your extension cords and connect them inside. So outside in the snow, or in the rain, or in the mud,
no more
it
knots.
Doesn't actually.
No more knots.
Yeah, so like you actually close it. It goes in both sides and it keeps it dry.
Love it. Smart.
I was like mind blowing.
Yeah.
Like I'm like I may not need it all the time, but this will come in handy.
Good for wet climates, that's for sure. Kayla, thank you so much. We'll do this again, man. There's a lot here. There's a lot we didn't cover. So I hope you have a good
we didn't even talk about my co-op students. We didn't talk about none of that stuff.
There's more. There's more. We'll save some for next time. You know, I haven't even gotten through the gamut to start having, you know, reoccurring people, which I'm looking forward to as well. But, you know, I think you're number 38, 39, maybe. I have to count.
I know you asked me a while ago, but I've been just way too busy and
perfect.
Just business is just crazy. Like I have a lot of work on the go. So,
well, everybody's busy, but you know what? People do want to hear your story, and people want to hear Ice Rock's story, and people want to hear Phil's story. And so I'm very appreciative when somebody comes on and we get to talk, especially an influencer, an expert like yourself. You know, people want to hear Kayla's story, so it's cool. And I want to hear your story. You know, I think it's cool.
Well, I appreciate you inviting me on.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk soon. You have a good rest of your day.
You as well.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Special thanks to Kayla Sullivan-Beckett, aka the Taping Queen, for joining us on the Drywall Podcast today. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to seeing you maybe at Build 23. Special thanks to our newest sponsor, CanAm Tools, for the months of March and April. Industry-leading tools that help professionals around the world save time and money. For the months of March and April, now you have the opportunity to get your hands on these amazing tools at a discounted price. All you have to do is go to canamtools.com and enter promo code TDP15. Also be on the lookout for my interview with CanAm Tool President Wolfgang Dombrowski. I can't wait for that one. The Drywall Podcast was also brought to you by Fresco Harmony. Fresco Harmony, making walls better since 2004. You can find Fresco Harmony online at csrbuildingsupply.com. Also, guests of the Drywall Podcast will receive a swag bucket from CSR full of all kinds of cool stuff. If you have questions about the Drywall Podcast, Fresco Harmony, CanAm Tools, or anything, you can email me directly at info@frescoharmony.com. Thank you so much for joining the Drywall Podcast today. Join us next week when we interview AG Drywall. Until then, keep drywalling.